heroin.
Yes.
So
yes, you became a heroin addict, in short, but let's get the early
Well, you know, my path was a good one young, but
Right.
I always liked I had a duality of life. I would weigh out, you know, I'd be, yes, a fine, great athlete, a wrestler, a soccer player, and all that, but I always felt good and I wanted to feel better. And I think that's the key. You know, I felt the type of person that wanted to feel better. And
the euphoria.
And I, you know, I was from LSD in those days in the 70s to, you know, Quaaludes and then of course marijuana was a given and all these things, and then eventually I found the drug of choice. And while I was also going in a path of being director of high school guidance in New Mexico,
right.
Being you know the first soccer coach in the state of New Mexico at that time,
right.
early on, and in the beginning in the mid '80s where I was, I moved to Santa Fe many years ago, and I got introduced to something called Dilaudid.
Oh yeah.
Well, Lenny Bruce. If anybody remembers Lenny Bruce, he
right.
was he loved his Dilaudid, and it's you shake it up. And in other words, I started to go away from the recreational use to more dependency, and I became quite an addict to that. And then I switched from that to, which is a whole story in itself, to heroin.
Right, and you had some pretty, I mean, I'm not going into all the details, but, you know, you've had some close, dangerous things with that. I also found, because I'm from Detroit, that you were dealing it on the assembly line of Ford Motors.
Well, that was the LSD.
The
yes,
LSD,
yes.
but I mean, it's like, wow, you know, you got yourself into some interesting kettles of fishes, they would say.
That's a good word. Yeah, I would say I took a path that is some people consider it the ecstasy of drugs, you know, the orgasmic drug of heroin. It was a powerful drug, and I spent...
Hard to balance how did you...
Well, that's what happened. That's when I started to really go down. I mean, I've been stabbed. Been shot at,
right.
Head. I was put in jail somewhat, but never convicted, thank God, because I was able to teach all these years and make my comeback. I would say it's less than 1 in 1,000 finally get clean. But my addiction was quite expensive. I would say
it had you.
I think Frank Sinatra had that Man with the Golden Arm. There's an old movie that maybe nobody knows,
right.
but it's basically it was $500,000 in my arm.
Wow.
About, you know, and
wow.
I lost 5 homes, and I had made a lot of money as an LSD dealer, and I was still living a dual life in schools, and I wasn't dealing with the kids or anything, but you know, I then, you know, when going to heroin, it's an expensive habit, and I you know, I got contracted hepatitis C. There's a whole, it's like up. And then straight down, and a quick spiral down to devastation and, you know, I mean, eventually homelessness.
Right.
So I would say yes. I had a downfall for sure. It was a tough one.
But then you got to New York, and you got yourself uptown working before you got to MLK, right?
Yeah, I arrived in 1984, 85. Okay, I arrived in 1985 back home.
Right.
I was, you know, I was born in Brooklyn, and I was born and raised in New York, and I came off a plane with $1.23 in my pocket. This was $1.23. A gorilla, not a monkey, a gorilla. But I mean, but I had weaned myself a little bit for a week or so. But the gorilla was there. It was not a monkey anymore. It's a gorilla when you have a you know, $500 to $1,000 day habit, but no money left. You know, and by the grace of God, and I could just say, and I just said I have to do something, and I had some people help me get them on my feet, and I had a daughter was living with me, and she went off to live with my mother a little bit, and I said I got to clean it up, and after living not well, I was able to slowly make a comeback, and with the help of some people, some people gave me $50 here, then. You know, found a place to crash, and you know, drove a cab, as in everybody, you know,
you know,
New York, and looked for an ad in the paper, and I said, let me go back and
Get back into education.
Let me see what I can do to get back in, even though the complications arose around my previous past, but it all worked out. You know, and it worked out. So I could say that from a downright addiction and devastation and despair, and really be homeless and penniless. Today, I mean, look, well, you can do it.
Right.
That's the hope.
Now, do you have a? I really was curious because some people know, like, you know, like when you have addictions, there's always that, like, sometimes people are, you know, you have to be willing and not willful, but, you know, in terms of recovery, did you know, like, the moment, like, okay, well, I got 1 hour, or I've got 1 day, and then it started to snowball into more days, or was there something so staggering, or that you look back and went like, oh yeah, that's the day I turned it around? Do you know what I mean? Most people kind of know or feel.
I felt it just resolved. It just kind of moved forward. You know, I just kept doing a day. And you know, the old day at a time. Day at a time. It's true. You take a day at a time.
Yeah, you got to take it second by second sometimes.
Oh, yeah. You know, you feel like crap. Your REMs, your rapid eye movements, you don't sleep. It's easy to stay clean than get clean is an old term I like to use. You know, getting clean is so hard. I mean, previously it was in 3 treatment centers, and I always went back and relapsed, and that's why I feel so much of today what's going with an addiction, which I haven't keyed much of my life on. I focused on more of helping and moving forward and getting back into the passion of soccer and the sport and coaching, but it is a difficult thing to overcome.
Right.